Debbie. This is Thomas, Brandon, and Jack. We're pro on the performance appraisal. And before we explore why, we have two terms we like to define first. The first term is performance appraisal, and that's where the company documents and evaluates how a person is doing. It's also known as job review, review intervention, and performance review. It tells you what you've done well and what you can improve on. The second term is performance management, and that's where the company ensures that the employees, their ideas and what they're doing contributes to the organization's goals. Appraisals are more than just a interaction between the managers and employees. It relates to the overall company. So positive points is that it began as a rationally correlated towards the rewards, meaning that the HR wanted to have better rewards and better compensations for those who are hardworking in the company. And it helps with the company's productivity because it increases its goals and it sets goals for improvement. Appraisals also offer a valuable opportunity to focus on work activities. So this can be used to monitor for success. It's a big picture overall because it allows the company to look at yearly data and it tells them if the company has improved or not. And lastly, we like to quote Kumar Parkala, who is a high-ranking human resource consultant. A performance appraisal that is conducted effectively leads to greater employee higher morale and higher productivity, creating a positive culture, improved overall performance and effectiveness of an organization. We agree with Kumar, and we agree with the overwhelming sentiments in the HR community, because if the performance appraisal is performed well, then you have a better outcome, and we will continue to work on proving this to you during the debate.
Okay. Ready? Start.
Hello, my name is John. We'll be talking about the cons of performance appraisals. This is Destiny, Derek, and Alex. So I'd first like to talk about how performance appraisals are not standard. There's no standard guidelines to go by. So managers have to devise a way to come up with these performance appraisals, and it's not necessarily a cut and dry process. Management in the same organization can do it differently, and management in different organizations can do it differently as well. Employees are subject to the bias of the manager. There's many biases that can go into this. We're going to go into that later. But you're basically at the hand of the manager depending on what they feel is important. It might not necessarily what you feel as an employee that you would do is important. So there's a disconnect there. Especially if a job isn't quantifiable, there's no numbers to specifically go by, it's really hard to evaluate the performance of an employee. Another thing that can happen is it can create an unnatural work environment. Unnatural being it can either create a hostile work environment where employees are kind of feel like they're being watched too closely and it can really affect what they're doing. Also being just stress, it can add a lot of stress to employees, and stress can obviously impact employee performance. And it can also be very costly and timely to perform performance evaluation because it takes a lot of time to perform this because you have to take time out of your day to go directly to a specific employee instead of focusing on all of the employees that are under a certain manager or a group of managers. And with that time being taken out of the day, then that's time being taken out of daily operations, which can eventually end up in a result of taking money out of your bottom line. And the last thing I'd like to say is that it's a small sample of an employee's work. And so with it being such a small sample, it's not necessarily representative of their work as a whole. And with it being while you're being evaluated, you're not necessarily going to act the same way that you would act normally. So with it being such a small portion of what you're doing as a whole, it's not necessarily going to be representative of your performance.
You guys ready? So you have 4 minutes. There's 1 second missing.
Okay.
So
Should be
that
four,
was-
4 to 5, right?
It's, oh yeah, you're right, it is. Yeah, it's 4 next time. Okay, are you ready?
Yep.
Go ahead.
So when we started researching this topic, we found a great little book by T.V. Rao called Performance Management and Appraisal Systems. And in it, he says that planning for performance is the first step in a performance management system. You can't plan for a company's performance without past data. Similar to the human resource planning process, a company has to know where it's been in order to know where it's going. So all this data he's talking about, you get from a performance appraisal. You can see past action by and performances by an employee and make sure that they're aligned with the vision and goal currently set by your company. For this debate, we're going to be looking more about how performance appraisals affect your company as a whole rather than just single interactions happening in a performance appraisal. So one thing we've noted is that performance appraisals are not always done correctly, but when they are done correctly, they should do these 3 things. They're going to give supervisors an understanding of their employees' abilities. So that's going to lead to greater person-environment fit, making sure that your employees' abilities are suited to the environment that they're working in. It should allow managers or employees to adjust goals. So if a company goal is too ambitious or employees aren't being ambitious enough, you can sit down and reevaluate your goals. It also helps managers know what skills they want to develop or train in their employees to help meet those goals. While performance appraisals sometimes are done incorrectly, we can't just stop doing them altogether. Instead of focusing on finding something new to replace it with, we need to focus on doing them correctly and putting more time and effort into training managers on how to employ these performance appraisals. According to James Barron, a professor at Yale School of Management, he says performance management is a process. So presumably, you've given a tremendous amount of real-time feedback, and your employees are people you know well. Hopefully your relationships can survive candid feedback. So he's saying you need to be giving your employees constant feedback, like on a daily basis, and their only form of feedback should not be from a performance appraisal. He also suggests to do performance appraisals quarterly or on a per project basis, just so you're always getting that constant feedback, you know how you're doing, things of that nature. When you're conducting a performance appraisal, you need to focus on viewing performance and balancing your negative comments with your positive comments. If your appraisal is overly negative, your employee is going to leave feeling defeated or angry. So you need to make sure that they feel fueled and ready to take your critiques to heart and make a change. And back to that Harvard Business Review article, they give some best practices. So they said that performance appraisals should follow a set pattern established with employees beforehand so that employees have clear expectations. So they know what to expect when they walk into a performance appraisal. They don't feel bombarded by the process. They know that the process is fair and that they know what you're using, what kind of appraisal you're using. They also said that employees should receive a copy of their appraisal before the in-person appraisal takes place so they can have their emotional responses in private. By following these best practices, managers will increase productivity. So a study published by the American Psychological Association looked at 23,000 observations of performance review. So they were looking at the ones that were done incorrectly. So while they're looking at it with a critical eye, they still couldn't deny the strong effectiveness of them. They saw a positive correlation of 0.41 between job improvement and just a simple occurrence of having a performance appraisal system in place.
The first point I'd like to address is the questionable effectiveness of performance appraisals. Formal appraisals are not always what we lead them to believe. Everyone in the organization, including managers and subordinates, have their own needs and expectations of performance appraisals. It's nearly impossible to create an ideal system. I found this study in the SAM Advanced Management Journal. This study consists of 2 parts. The first is an in-depth tape-recorded interview that was conducted with 60 managers from 7 large organizations that currently use formal performance appraisal systems. The second part was a questionnaire that was administered to 401 members of a division of a Midwestern Fortune 100 company. Based on these findings, the appraisal system was viewed as ineffective by both parties as a vehicle for linking pay to performance, helping improve employee motivation and performance, and improving the manager-subordinate working relationship. These findings are particularly important because since 2 of the most frequently cited reasons for doing appraisals is merit pay administration and improving employee motivation and performance. In each of these cases, the appraisal system received disastrous ratings, especially from subordinates. The second point I'd like to address is the legal liability that comes with performance appraisals. According to the new legal battlegrounds for performance evaluations, mistakes and abuses occur in the evaluation process, which in turn become the source of a potential liability for employers. The differing attitudes among professionals responsible for the administration of performance appraisals is partly due to employers having to face more and more legal challenges to performance evaluations. I looked into a couple different legal problems that may arise from performance appraisals. One very common example is an employee receiving an unfavorable performance evaluation and then claiming that the evaluation is a deceptive device for discrimination based on age. This is a violation in the Age Discrimination in Employment Act enacted in 1967. I looked at one court case with Lauren versus Manhattan Life Insurance. John Lauren filed an ADA discrimination suit after he was passed over for promotion, reassigned to a lower status job, and finally terminated during a reduction in force company-wide. Based on the performance evaluation documentation, the court established that the plaintiff was not promoted for legitimate performance-related issues, and that the company was enacted in a company-wide youth movement to replace the older workers. Another example is retaliation. It typically occurs when a supervisor gives a negative evaluation to get even with an employee for a reason unrelated to job performance. Title VII prohibits this from employers retaliating against their employees who oppose any unlawful employment practice. Another example of retaliation constitutes an evaluator giving a negative evaluation to retaliate against a disabled employee for making an EEOC charge based on disability. It can be difficult for the disabled